All right. I'm here recording a Formula One philosophy today, just to add to our Abu Dhabi Grand Prix recap that you just listened to. And thanks for all the likes, thanks for all the shares, thanks for all the comments. We really appreciate that. I'm just here to add some thoughts of my own today, and Sean's welcome to join in too, if he'd like. Just some things we didn't get to talk about. Sean was not in the mood for my bullshit during that podcast. He wanted to talk about some of the things he valued. I really wanted to delve into the psychology and the philosophy behind the three-man title fight. Sean was not really interested in that. He thinks we've talked about it too much. Wanted to talk about Alpine and Yuki Tsunoda's qualifying performances, which is fine. He has his own likes and wants and desires of Formula One. But to me, I really wanted to just hit a nail with a hammer on the title fight we just saw. We didn't really delve into it in our Abu Dhabi Grand Prix recap. Sean was not interested in me going off about it, so I'm going to do it on my own. And that's fine. Like I said, it's fine. He has his own wants and desires, but I had a lot of things I wanted to hit home, and I'll talk about between Max, Lando, and Oscar. I'm just going to hit that today. It's going to be a quick podcast, quick little add-on to our Abu Dhabi Grand Prix recap, just to talk about the title fights. And we will have our predictions recap coming up soon, where we talk about all the things we predicted at the beginning of the season, see how we did, our over-unders. That'll be coming soon. So look forward to that. That's not today. Today is just to talk about some of the things we saw over the year, and especially the last couple races, and between Lando, Oscar, and Max. F1_philosophy at Instagram, F1philosophypod at gmail.com for any questions or comments, and F1 Philosophy at YouTube. Keep liking and subscribing to our videos and posts. The more traction we get, the more we can do this, the more we can talk about, the more likely we are to be unemployed and living off of this. All right, so I got a little bit through on our last episode, but I just want to hit some things home today. So I had 3 philosophical absolutes that I talked about in the last episode, and Sean, like I said, just kind of brushed it off. It's fine. Didn't want to talk about it. Didn't want to deal with me. I get it. There's a lot if you hear it about me from me all the time. But I made 3 philosophical absolutes to describe the 2025 F1 season and the title fight we just saw. One of the best title fights ever. Once again ended like 2021, kind of lackluster in the sense that it was predictable and a little bit of controversy, and it just kind of fell. Like it just kind of happened. Like I know 2021 was definitely very controversial, very epic, very unbelievable to see that last lap shootout with Hamilton on old tires and Max on new tires, and people are split and divided on what really happened there. I've said it a million times before. Hamilton got screwed in that moment. I believed Hamilton got screwed. However, Max was the better driver that year. It was justice for all the shit that happened throughout the year, and I know a lot of people are going to disagree with that. But for Lewis Hamilton, who made a career off of the rules changing in his favor, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. Sometimes a ruling does not go your way. And really, like Sean has said a million times before, the problem is Mercedes didn't pit. Had they pit Hamilton, Hamilton still wins the title. So it was a mistake. They just banked on the season ending under the safety car, and they lost. They should have been more proactive. They should have treated it like they were going to be racing, and they didn't. Red Bull acted and won. But this time around, it's just, we saw the lacklusterness of the Abu Dhabi circuit, and it's really just, it's not a good title fight circuit. Whoever gets pole usually wins. Barely any passing, a lot of bullshit. And we saw that with Lando Norris's not penalty. Sean talked about that a little bit and why it should have been. But here we are. Here we are after all that, and he is still the champion. And to me, I'm going to talk about this throughout this episode. I don't know how to say this nicely, but he's just a fraud. And that's the philosophical absolute number 2. Lando Norris is a fraud, and I'm going to talk a bit about it. He's not the champion we think we are, and they're trying, you can see already with the media, trying to spin what happened this season. Oh, he overcame things. He didn't overcome anything. And let me just talk about philosophical absolute number 1 before I delve into that. But philosophical absolute number 1 of the 2025 season was Max Verstappen is the best driver on the grid. Hands down. We talked about it last episode. Untouchable. 8 wins. More wins than anybody else. Like, that's just not being hammered home. It's just that he had a horrible situation at Red Bull and still managed to turn it around and have the most wins. Remember when he was winning in 2023, it's just like, oh, he only has the best car. Zach Brown said it. Lando Norris said it. Every non-Red Bull personality said it, and it's just not true. We were watching a once-in-a-lifetime event, a man single-handedly getting his car so good that he won 19 of 22 races. And I say he was getting his car good because the second driver fell apart and has fallen apart since. Imagine winning like that while the other car can't even get in the top 10 sometimes. Oh, Sergio Perez has fallen off. Maybe. I don't think so. I think it was a tough car to drive, but only Max can figure it out. That's amazing. It was a big comeback, too. Like, it was a comeback this season that we love, the likes of we've never seen before. 104 points to 2. I talked about it with Sean a bit, and he didn't like the question, but what was the moment that lost it for Max? Like I said before, it wasn't Spain, wasn't Antonelli. It was, to me, it was this tone that was set in Australia with Red Bull, like this loser's mentality. Let's cling to what we had in the past and not act and just hold the line instead of being aggressive under Horner. That completely changed under Mekis, where they became experimental and aggressive, and it definitely paid off considering you have the best driver. And I think they would have won. They should have won the title. I predicted preseason Max was going to run away with it, and I think he would have if Horner resigned preseason. They might have had a tougher start, but I think by Imola, Max just starts running away with the title, I think. That's my opinion. Because I think if Mekis was there, he would have figured out the situation, put the right people in place, talked to the right people. Like you said, he coordinated Max and Pierre Wache, the lead engineer, and the rest is history. They're entering their Michael Schumacher era at Red Bull, where they have Laurent Mekis acting like Jean Todt, just protecting Max from the Red Bull head office. Max Pierre Wache, like he's like Sean talked about, got rid of Marco, talked to the head office and said, this is how I'm going to run things. And I think originally he was a puppet, but now he's a puppet who started winning, so they're going to listen to him and respect him. And we'll see how things pan out next year. I might be right about him being a puppet, but if things start panning out in the right direction, this is going to be a great relationship because Mekis isn't really doing anything. He's just coordinating and using what Red Bull already has, better than Horner did. Horner was too busy clinging to power that he never bothered to use what he had, or he started muddying the waters of what he had just to keep power and one-upping Marco, in my opinion. But Max is now Michael, and he's configuring and analyzing his car week to week. How can I get it better? Like what we saw with Brazil. They come out flat. They come out really flat, really bad. Go into the pit lane start and reconfigure the car. Max knows all the problems, and the car's the best on the grid. That's hard to beat. That symbiotic relationship with that car. I've talked about it before. Max is entering that era. And yeah, he doesn't have an engineer as good as Ross Brawn, but Red Bull seems to have good enough engineers. Like, who the hell's Pierre Wache? He was garbage the first half of the season, but just listening to Max, he is now really good. So look out for Red Bull. I'm intrigued to see what happens next year. I'm not too optimistic considering they might be on the back foot engine-wise, but we'll see. If anyone can come out of it, it's Max. Philosophical absolute number 2. Lando Norris is a fraud. I was trying to talk about that with Sean. He was having none of it. But I want to talk about it a little bit because he's not a fraud in the sense that he lied about everything. He's a fraud in the sense of what the perception around him was supposed to be. Remember, it was supposed to be his dominant era. The only thing holding him back apparently in 2023 was not a good car. You had the best car all season, and Oscar Piastri wiped the floor with you that first half. And I have no proof of this, but I'll say it. I have a feeling McLaren did something to Oscar's car. There's no proof, but you don't just do team orders against Oscar and not mess up his car. Everybody believes someone's the other, like in other teammate battles like Perez and Verstappen, Weber and Vettel, Raikkonen and Vettel. You know, oh, they always mess with the car. Oh, Schumacher, Irvine. Oh, they just mess with the car always. They just treat him like crap. They treat the second driver like crap. If they let him fly, they'll beat Michael. No. But no for Michael. But for the rest, if you all believe that, how come we have to brush aside that Oscar's car was messed with Lando? Because the media likes Lando. And the media is trying to protect Lando. That's what I think. But remember, he's supposed to just be the best driver with the best car, and the exact opposite happened. Every time they made a claim about him, it did not come true. Right? It's just media. It's just media stroking him and making him seem like he was this tiger that he never was. He's a paper tiger. Pre-season, they asked the British media, and this is a poll done by I think Sky Sports, and they said to the average Brit who understood Formula One from a low perspective, like low understanding, to high perspective, just people like not just the average British person, Formula One fans in Britain, and they said who's the best driver on the grid, and they 45% said Lando Norris before this season. How does that happen without a media onslaught of constant positive perception? Because it's categorically not true. Last year he got 4 wins to Max's 9. To Max's 9. And Max won the title by 63 points with a car that was falling apart. Lando Norris had the best car from Miami on and did not win. So how do we perceive Lando as the best without a media onslaught of positivity? They try to make him seem like he's something he's not. And they're even saying now, he's a new type of champion. He's the nice guy. He did it his way. He's a complete fraud in that sense because he didn't. It's not nice to destroy your teammate for your positivity, right? It's not nice that you won at the expense of your teammate. That's not a nice guy thing. You're worse than Michael. All the times that they claim Michael was just like this garbage type of driver because he made sure his second driver was no good. He was winning titles with bad cars. Lando had a good car and said, I could beat anybody with the best car. You can't even beat your teammate. This is a complete fraud. He's not a new type of champion. Carlos Sainz said this. Sky Sports said this. They're talking about the new nice guy Norris can actually win. He can't. You had to destroy Oscar. All the team orders we've gone over 1 million times. 100 points probably taken away from Oscar. Maybe even more considering I think they tampered with his car after Zandvoort. I surmised that theory after Monza. I said, what if Monza was an opportunity to make Oscar seem like the villain, and Oscar didn't take the bait? But I think the McLaren mechanics had made Oscar the villain by that point anyways. Nobody celebrated his win at Zandvoort. Nobody's been around him every time he's on the podium, and Lando's not. They value and they stand by Lando. And I have a feeling they tampered with his car because they wanted to. Because they wanted Norris to come back. They felt like Norris was the underdog at this point. Let's stand by Lando. Oscar's probably going to win anyways unless we help Lando. It's this altruistic bullshit. You destroy who's better for someone who's worse because you feel like the one who's worse just deserves it. It's never had a chance. Not fair. It's nonsense. It's going back to that poll. That poll I imagine is a lot lower now. It should have been 5% to begin with. I imagine it's that now. The entire Formula One fan grid understands that Lando Norris is not who they say he was. The average fan understands this now. He lied. But the media is trying to create this perception that he's this great guy, the true champion. No. To just barely get him over the line, they had to destroy Oscar, and Red Bull had to destroy Max. He had this interview in 2020 where they asked him about Lewis Hamilton. They said, it's really easy for Lewis to win titles because he's only battling with 2 people. He actually said this because in his mind, he is the best driver on the grid at this point, even in 2020, which is unbelievable. And he goes, look at the battles I have every day fighting from like what was it, 10th to 6th? All the drivers I have to fight. So in his mind, he's a better driver because he's battling amongst the weak. And completely dismissing the fact that to be a champion is very hard, and Lewis did it 7 times. This is the one time I'm going to side with Lewis. And it shows his just fundamental misunderstanding of what it takes to win. He is not who he says he was. He's just an average driver who finally got a decent car, but they still had to destroy his teammate to get him over the line. Complete misunderstanding of what it takes to win. Are you going to apologize to Lewis for that comment? It's a lot harder, isn't it? And you can make the case that, Mercedes never supported Bottas as well as they did Hamilton. Yeah, Hamilton was the number 1 driver. Yeah, Lewis only had to beat Bottas and Verstappen that season. But it's still hard, isn't it? Because you only had to beat Piastri and Verstappen, and you crumbled. You crumbled. The idea of him is gone now. Everybody knows it. I just want to hit this home. Watching him cross the line and have no one celebrate in Abu Dhabi. Watching him barely smirk and, yeah, oh, he's happy, he's emotional, whatever. You barely won this title and you didn't deserve it. What they had to do to Oscar to get you over the line is ridiculous. What the FIA had to do to Oscar and Max at times. Yeah, there was a disqualification. You can make a case the FIA kept the title fight going longer than they did for Max. But you're a fraud because you told us and Zach Brown told us, and Zach Brown now is doing a victory lap for no good reason, saying, everybody said we couldn't navigate a two-driver team and have Lando win, but we did. I wonder what Oscar feels about that statement. I wonder what Oscar thinks about that statement. And just to finish off the Lando Norris point, who claims, yeah, I've had tougher teammates. I won with tougher teammates. Zach Brown saying the same thing. I'm a different type of driver. I don't have to be aggressive and rude like Max. You do, because Max almost won the title and probably should have won the title. I don't need this. Kind of reminds me of Thomas Sowell. Made a comment about socialism versus capitalism. And he said, I never understood how capitalism is considered greedy when socialism is the one taking money from people to give it to those who didn't earn it. That's the definition of greed. It's just taking money from people under this idea of altruism. And it's not the case. But it's like what Lando said. He's like, I associate this with Lando because Lando said, I don't need to be a clear number one driver. I don't need to be like Michael Schumacher and say that I'm the number one. I can win against my teammate. And he's bragging about this now. And that didn't happen, did it? You ended up taking from your teammate anyways. You're the real fraud in that sense. You guys people like him call Michael a cheater and a fraud because they never had to deal with his teammate, never had to fight his teammate. Neither did you. Because when you did, you lost. So you did everything you hated about Michael. And the FIA cheated for you in a few times. Silverstone, Oscar's penalties at Brazil, the nonsense VSC at Mexico. That puts Oscar over the line just through that and wins the title. Everything you claim Michael was actually you. You just hid behind the right people. Michael was independent. He didn't have the help from Daddy, did he? He had his own team that helped him. You're the real greedy person, Lando. Not Michael Schumacher. You're the real fraud number one driver, not Michael. Michael earned everything he got. He developed his cars. You fell apart when you got the best car. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Lando. I don't respect his number one next year. And just my last philosophical truth of this season, philosophical absolute. Oscar Piastri got screwed, and it's all his fault. You can feel sorry for him. You can think the team orders were ridiculous, and they were. I do. I pointed them out every step of the way because I saw them coming 2 years ago. I knew this would eventually happen. I knew they would never let Oscar win. Sean said it too at the beginning of the season. We'll go over our predictions next episode. Sean said exactly that. They'll never let Oscar win. We both saw it coming for years. You cannot serve two masters. You have to pick one. And Oscar never stood up for himself. He never made it clear that he was number one. He never threatened. He never really gave them an ultimatum. He should have threatened to leave after the second time in Japan. He should have made a big stink in Australia, him and Mark Webber, to say, I could have won that race if you let me through, but they didn't. He just turned around and said, that's all my fault. I made a mistake. That's not true, is it? Wasn't you exactly. Your team kind of screwed you down. Yes, there was a mistake made by both of you, but you got it worse because, I don't know, dirty air, having to slow down, being off your rhythm. Why didn't you make a statement? Why didn't you make a stink? It's because you live by this morality that the rest of McLaren isn't living by. You think, I'll show them. I'll do it the right way. There is no right way. There's winning and there's losing. When people are willing to go to lengths, and you've already had several instances of this before Monza, before the infamous Monza, you had already had 5 or 6 infamous situations that the team screwed you over. Australia, Japan, Imola, Hungary, Austria, Silverstone. They had already screwed you many times by that point. You needed to make a stink. You never did. You kept thinking, I'll just win the right way, and then they'll really have to support me. No. And they're not going to support you next year. Why would Zach Brown get rid of his number 2? A good number 2. If they lose you, they're not going to win the Constructors. He has to put you in his place in order for Lando to win. Lando's his boy. Nothing's going to change now. That's why you need to stand up for yourself. Oh, there's no number 2. They're going to keep lying in the media, Oscar. They're going to keep lying about this. They're not going to stop. They're not going to support you. They're not going to support your title fight, especially if Lando's close. You just saw it. Was Lando number 1 this year? Yes. Oh, but we don't have a number 1, number 2. Yes, we do. You're gonna have to threaten to leave, and they will keep doing it until you leave. I think you should leave at the end of this year. I think you should leave now. I think you should leave right now and make a statement. I was not supported. I don't feel comfortable here. I don't feel like I can win here. Really stick it to them. At least threaten, because then they have to support you next year to keep you, and then you can win, and then you should leave anyways. At minimum, you should leave. Zach Brown is not going to change this dynamic. And that's why I say it's all your fault. Yeah, you got screwed, but you didn't make enough of a stink. Neither did Mark Webber. Why do you still have Mark Webber as your manager? I hired him, to help you navigate through this thing so you don't get screwed? The guy who got screwed is managing you and hasn't changed. What did you think was going to happen? I saw this a mile away. I said, why would he be his manager? I said, I've been making this claim for 2 years. Go listen to the old discussions that Sean and I had about McLaren. I knew this would happen. I said, Mark will screw you because he got screwed. Nothing will change. And lo and behold, you got screwed. Mark never stood up for you. He never stood up for himself. Why would he stand up for you? Fire him and leave the team. Really make a shake-up in Formula One, and you will see the results follow. You are that good. We saw it happen. Stella admits he built the car around you. So when the car started falling apart and it wasn't that good for Norris either, what does that mean, everybody? It means they were tampering with Oscar's car. It means they're probably going to be really bad unless they rally around Oscar next year. So I asked a question years ago, and this is how I'm going to end the episode. I asked a question years ago. I said, if they have Lando Norris, why did they sign Oscar Piastri? And I think we now know the answer. It's to make Lando Norris look better than he is when he wins. Zach Brown can now claim Lando beat a tough teammate plus Max Verstappen. Even though they gamed and manipulated the system and the points to make sure that Lando wins, and I think they got help from the FIA. I think they were all in on it. That's why Lando didn't get a penalty in Abu Dhabi. That's why Oscar got timely penalties at the wrong times that even Sainz said, we got to speak up about this. How does Oscar get a penalty in Brazil for a racing incident? And yeah, Oscar fell off in the second half. He wasn't as good. I think they tampered with his car, and if they didn't, he is only himself to blame. But I think Zach put Oscar there to continue the myth that Lando is that good. Look, he can beat everybody. But we saw the reality, didn't we? Everybody's saying it. The entire media is saying it. P1's Matt and Tommy, Law VS, The Race, all the commentators there going, well, you may disagree, but Lando's a worthy champion. He got the most points at the end, so therefore he must be the champion. They're already shifting the goalposts to say, you know this is bullshit, but you're going to accept it. Lando won, deal with it, essentially, is what they're saying to us. No. No Oscar won or Max won. One of the two. They were the two better drivers. We all saw it. But they could continue this myth now, saying, look who Lando had to beat to win his title. He is that good. That's why they hired Oscar. They were always going to do this to him, to make Lando look better than he is. I think they knew Lando would choke when it mattered the most, because I think they knew the type of driver Lando was. He never won. 133 races before he won a Grand Prix. That's not insignificant. Nobody thinks Sergio Perez is a champion. 169 races before a victory. There's a reason for this. So Oscar's here to make Lando look better. That's my final answer to that. But reality is Oscar's better. We all know it. We all saw it. F1 fans are booing Lando every time he wins because they know what a fraud is. To F1, to the Saudis, to Formula1.com, to Domenico Domenicali, to Mohammed bin whatever the fuck your name is that you're going to run unopposed and burn and have no elections. But Bernie Ecclestone's the real dictator. To all of you, we saw through this. Stop trying to shove it in our face. We know exactly what happened. We know exactly what this is. We know exactly the type of fraud you pushed on us. Some of us will take it. Some of us will deal with it. But you will lose in the long run unless you rectify this. If you keep pushing unworthy, crappy champions on us, we will stop watching. It's happened before. So good luck. Good luck trying to sell this to us again. We know Lando's not the champion. Those are my philosophical absolutes of 2025. We're going to have our recap of our predictions coming up soon. Any questions or comments, f1philosophypod@gmail.com, F1philosophy at YouTube, and F1_philosophy at Instagram. I hope I got my points across. They've been bugging me all week and trying to get them out there. But thank you for listening, everybody. Have a good night.